The courtroom in downtown Dallas wasn't particularly grand. Wood-paneled walls, worn leather seats, a faint hum from old fluorescent lights. It was the kind of place where most days passed without incident. But on this Monday morning, a teenager stepped through its doors and shifted the axis of the entire room. His name was Malik Jefferson, just 18, with nervous eyes and a binder clutched to his chest. He wore a plain blazer over a hoodie, sneakers still dusted from the bus ride over, and a stutter that made people glance away when he spoke. To the court officers, the attorneys, even the judge on the bench, he was just another student intern, tagging along with some public defender. They were wrong. Malik wasn't a guest. He was the defense. 3 weeks earlier, Malik had been pulled over on a quiet street in Oak Cliff. The officer, Carl Dorsey, a 25-year veteran of the Dallas PD, claimed Malik was acting suspiciously, nervous eyes. Too quiet. Glanced at his glove box. Those were the notes in the official report. But what Dorsey didn't know then was that Malik wasn't just a kid heading home from debate team practice. He was a participant in a pilot program for high-achieving high school seniors interested in criminal justice, one that allowed students to observe, research, and even assist in real cases. And this time, Malik wasn't just observing, he was defending himself. Judge Duran, seasoned and stone-faced, had seen every kind of courtroom drama in his years on the bench. But when Malik requested to serve as lead defense under supervision from his mentor, the courtroom buzzed with disbelief. Dorsey chuckled aloud. One of the bailiffs snorted. Even the clerk raised an eyebrow. A teenager, black, stuttering, barely shaving, was going to cross-examine a veteran cop? Let the boy try, Dorsey reportedly whispered to the assistant, DA. This'll be over in 10 minutes. But what none of them understood was that Malik had already spent every night for 2 weeks dissecting the body cam footage, police manual, and precedent cases. He had memorized sections of the state code, annotated every version of the report, and even rehearsed courtroom Latin, because if people were going to judge how he spoke, he'd make them work to understand it. This wasn't just a traffic case. It was a reckoning, a quiet battle between perception and reality, between instinct and evidence. It was about what happens when someone who isn't supposed to have power wields it anyway, and does it better than those trained to hold it. Malik Jefferson came to court not just to clear his name, but to ask a bigger question. In a system that routinely trusts authority over truth, what happens when the truth is sharper, younger, and speaks Latin with a stutter? And what happens when everyone in that courtroom is forced to listen? Part 2. The defining encounter at exactly 8:57 a.m., the door creaked open, and Malik Jefferson walked in. His steps echoed faintly against the floor, not because they were loud, but because the rest of the courtroom had fallen into a dull hum of expectation. A few people looked up, then quickly looked away. Hoodie, sneakers, a binder instead of a briefcase. Nothing about him said attorney. No one moved. No one acknowledged him. Not the clerk, not the bailiff, not even the man on the witness stand. That man, Officer Carl Dorsey, watched Malik approach with a grin that barely masked his amusement. He was already leaning back in the stand, arms folded, legs crossed, the portrait of courtroom boredom. Dorsey was used to this routine. He had testified in dozens of minor cases. Most ended in plea deals or quick convictions. He'd never been questioned by someone under the age of 20. Malik didn't look at him. He walked straight to the defense table, placed his binder on top, and carefully pulled out 3 tabbed pages, one labeled narrative, another policy ref, and the last cross Dorsey. He clicked his pen once. The judge entered. "All rise," the bailiff said, and everyone obeyed. When they sat, Malik remained standing. The assistant DA leaned over, raising an eyebrow. "Sorry, that seat's for counsel," he said with a half-laugh. I am counsel," Malik answered without flinching. "You're the what?" I'm leading today's cross-examination. Under supervision. The DA blinked, then scoffed softly. The sound carried. Someone chuckled in the gallery. Dorsey whispered loudly, "What is this, teen court?" More laughs. Even the court reporter smiled. But Judge Duran didn't smile. He looked at Malik, then at the documents on the table. "Proceed," he said, his voice measured. Malik took a breath. He turned toward the stand. "Officer Dorsey," he began, the stutter barely noticeable. You conducted the stop of my vehicle on March 2nd, correct?" "Yes." "You stated in your report that I was acting, quote, twitchy and probably high." "That's right. Did you administer a field sobriety test?" "No." "Did you conduct a breathalyzer?" "No." "Any drug test at all?" "No." Malik tilted his head. "So your conclusion was based on what?" "Experience," Dorsey replied confidently. "You fit the profile." Malik didn't blink. "Which profile?" "The one that says someone's hiding something." He paused, then flipped to the second tab. According to the Dallas PD Handbook, Section 7.4, officers must not base traffic enforcement decisions on instincts or perceived demeanor alone. Are you familiar with that section? Dorsey shrugged. "It's just guidelines. Not in a courtroom, it isn't." Malik didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The courtroom began to lean in. The snickers were gone. The judge shifted slightly in his chair. "I have here," Malik continued, "a still image from your body cam footage. Time-stamped 4:13 p.m., the moment before the stop. It shows two SUVs parked partially blocking the stop sign." Dorsey looked at the screen Malik held up. He paused. "Were you able to see my wheels fully stop?" Dorsey didn't answer. I'll repeat. Did you have a clear, unobstructed view?" "No," Dorsey finally admitted. "Yet you wrote, failure, to stop at signed intersection." Dorsey fidgeted. Malik flipped again. "Probatio incumbit a quidicit," he said calmly. Dorsey raised an eyebrow. "It's Latin," Malik clarified. "The burden of proof lies on the one who asserts, not the one who denies." He let the words settle. Let the silence work. Malik closed his binder. "No further questions at this time." And just like that, the courtroom wasn't laughing anymore. It started as a small ripple, a subtle shift in the air, one that came right after Malik asked, "Were you able to see my wheels fully stop?" And Officer Dorsey had to admit, no. From that moment on, everything tilted. It wasn't just that Dorsey had been caught in a contradiction. It was that everyone in the room realized the kid with the stutter, the one they had laughed at, was now in control of the narrative. Malik didn't move with swagger. He didn't grin or gloat. He simply flipped to the next page in his binder. "Officer Dorsey," he said, steady now, "you also claimed that I reached toward the glove box." "Yes." Malik raised a printed still frame from the body cam footage. Time-stamped just seconds after the stop began. "Can you show the court where, in this frame or the next, I ever removed my hands from the wheel?" Dorsey leaned forward, squinted. "I assumed you assumed," Malik repeated, "yet wrote it as fact." Dorsey shifted in his seat. The prosecutor began to rise, but Judge Duran waved him off. "Continue, Mr. Jefferson." "Yes, Your Honor." Malik turned a tab. "In your report, you wrote that I was likely under the influence. Did you note the time of the stop? 4:13 p.m. And did you ask me where I was coming from?" "No." "Would it have mattered if I told you I was coming from tutoring sixth graders at Bookman Middle School?" Another ripple. Dorsey froze. "I didn't ask," he said. "No, you didn't," Malik replied, now letting a pause sit between every phrase. "You didn't ask who I was. You didn't ask what I'd been doing. You didn't ask anything because you thought you already knew." He turned toward the jury. "Because he thought I fit the type." The tension in the room tightened. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a moment. Dorsey's jaw flexed. Malik flipped a final page. In the footage at minute 112, you say, and I quote, "Probably, hi. Looks like he's hiding something." That's what you said, yes? Yes. Again, no tests, no observations, just perception. Experience, Dorsey muttered. Probatio incumbit qui dicit, Malik responded instantly. The burden of proof is on the one who claims, Dorsey blinked. Malik continued, voice even but growing more direct. You didn't observe a crime. You didn't witness a threat. You saw a young black man driving a used Camry wearing a hoodie and made a decision. He looked directly at Dorsey. Not based on evidence, but on a feeling. And in that moment, the room turned. People leaned forward. Phones were pocketed. Even the assistant DA was scribbling notes now, not preparing for rebuttal, but trying to salvage something. Malik stood, fully upright. This wasn't policing. This wasn't protocol. This was profiling, subtle, quiet, dismissible. Until now. He returned to the defense table but didn't sit. One final question, he said. Have you ever been reprimanded for similar behavior before? Dorsey hesitated. Answer the question, Judge Duran instructed. Yes. 10 years ago. Excessive. Force complaint. Dropped? Malik asked. No. The silence that followed was no longer disbelief. It was reckoning, and Malik didn't smile. He just turned the binder one last time to a page labeled Truth. The echoes of Malik's cross-examination didn't fade when he sat down. If anything, they grew louder in the minds of everyone present, because what Malik had exposed wasn't just one flawed stop. It was a blueprint, a routine, a pattern of assumptions stitched together over years and worn like armor by officers, who never expected to be questioned this precisely. Judge Duran adjusted his glasses and looked over his bench. Dorsey, once smug and dismissive, now avoided eye contact. Malik, calm as ever, flipped silently through his notes. The assistant DA whispered frantically with a paralegal. Malik stood again. Your Honor, he said, I'd like to enter into evidence several prior incident reports involving Officer Dorsey, specifically ones that use the same phrasing found in this case. Judge Duran nodded. Proceed. He handed over 3 files, case numbers, dates, identical wording. In each, the subjects were young black men. Each stop initiated based on demeanor, twitchy, nervous, avoided eye contact, glanced toward the glove box. No contraband was found in any of them. One had filed a complaint. Another was detained for over 2 hours. None were charged. Do you recall these cases, officer? Malik asked. Dorsey's voice was quieter now. Not specifically. Would you agree your language was similar? If you say so. No, I'm asking if you say so. Dorsey paused. Yes. And did you ever receive formal retraining or corrective action regarding your pattern? Of stops? No. Malik turned to the jury. That's the problem. The room was tense, because now it wasn't about Malik. It wasn't even just about Dorsey. It was about how many people like Dorsey had written reports just like this. How many names were filed and forgotten. How many citizens were treated as suspects based on tone, clothing, or posture. He raised a copy of the Dallas PD's internal review policy. Section 12.3 requires supervisory review of all repeat stop patterns with matching language across 90 days, yet no reviews were conducted. Why? Dorsey said nothing. Judge Duran interjected. Mr. Jefferson, do you have evidence of this policy breach? Malik nodded. I do. Through a Freedom of Information Act request, I obtained internal review records. Officer Dorsey's pattern was flagged twice, but both notations were dismissed as not actionable. He let the jury absorb that. This is not an isolated error. This is institutional neglect, and that neglect enables profiling to persist unchecked. The courtroom was silent, because Malik had just widened the scope. This wasn't a defense strategy. It was a system indictment. The courtroom was still when Malik sat down again, but the reverberations of his questions lingered like aftershocks. Dorsey sat quietly, no longer posturing. The prosecutor whispered something urgent, but Judge Duran lifted a hand, silencing the room. "No need for redirect," he said flatly. "Let's move to closing arguments." Malik stood slowly, walked to the jury box, and for the first time addressed them directly, without a binder in his hands. "You saw the footage," he said. "You heard the testimony. You saw what wasn't seen. No violation, no threat, no cause. Just an officer who thought he could feel his way into justification." He paused. Then, quieter. "And you saw what happens when no one asks questions." A beat. Then another. He nodded. "This isn't just about one stop, or one officer. It's about what we let become routine, and what happens when routine is wrong." There were no theatrics, no anger, just facts, delivered with a voice that still occasionally caught on consonants but never faltered on truth. Afterward, Judge Duran called a brief recess. The jury deliberated for just over an hour. The verdict, not guilty on all counts. Several jurors looked directly at Malik when it was read, one even mouthing, "Thank you." News spread fast. Local media picked up the story by afternoon. Someone had uploaded a clip of Malik's closing on TikTok. By sunset, it was trending on Twitter. He didn't shout, he didn't argue, he just dismantled it, quietly, completely. One comment read. That night, the Dallas PD issued a brief statement. They would open a formal review into Officer Dorsey's conduct and the apparent lack of supervisory oversight. No apology, just administrative language. Malik read it from his phone, sitting at a cafe near the courthouse. His mentor joined him, placing a soda on the table. "You know this isn't over," he said. "I know," Malik replied. "But it's a start." The next day, Malik received dozens of messages, students, parents, teachers. One from a mother in El Paso read, "My son stutters too. He watched your clip 5 times. He wants to study law now." Malik didn't reply to all of them, but he saved everyone. 3 days later, Officer Dorsey was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. No press conference, no cameras. Just a quiet exit, the kind usually reserved for transfers. But this time, everyone noticed. A week later, Malik stood in front of a classroom of high school juniors at a civic education program. Jeans, hoodie, fresh sneakers, same stutter. "You're going to walk into rooms where people think you don't belong," he said. "Don't waste time proving them wrong. Prove yourself right." The class clapped. One student raised a hand. "How'd you stay so calm?" Malik smiled. "Because they expect noise, but they're not ready for precision." And with that, another room leaned in. Justice didn't arrive in a roar. It came in quiet, undeniable clarity. Malik didn't ask for applause. He didn't wait for media attention. What he wanted, what he always wanted, was recognition of something deeper, that truth, no matter how softly spoken, could still shake the walls of a courtroom. After the trial, Malik returned to school. Most of his classmates only knew the basics. Some had seen the clips online. A few teachers pulled him aside with pride, but Malik didn't linger in the moment. He was already focused on what came next. He filed paperwork to join a local legal advocacy group. He began helping review stop-and-search cases for possible rights violations. In meetings, attorneys now looked at him not like a prodigy, but a peer. They asked his opinion. They listened. 1 month later, the Dallas PD released a revised policy on traffic stop justifications. Officers were now required to submit additional articulation forms when citing behavioral suspicion without physical evidence. It wasn't a sweeping reform. but it was a start. A seed planted. Malik never took credit. He didn't issue statements. But he noticed that in one revised training video, briefly at the 246 mark, a sentence from his cross-examination appeared. Probatio incumbit e qui dicit. At home, his mother framed the verdict form. He let her, not for show, but for her peace. She had watched him rehearse night after night, his stutter tightening with pressure, his hands trembling after every dry run. She had believed in him even when he doubted himself. That frame was for her. He also began speaking at other high schools, especially those with speech and debate clubs. He never led with the courtroom story. Instead, he asked questions. What's something you've been told not to do? What does power sound like to you? In a world that prized dominance, Malik taught precision. Where others shouted, he paused. Where others attacked, he deconstructed. And in those pauses, he made space for truth, for justice, for others who thought their voice wasn't enough. He knew one win wouldn't fix the system. Dorsey might be disciplined, he might not. But now, Dorsey's record would be reviewed in every future case, every report reread with a sharper eye. And that mattered, because justice, as Malik had shown, isn't just about verdicts. It's about visibility, about holding a mirror to institutions that operate in the shadows, about reminding those with power that someone is watching, closely, carefully, relentlessly. Malik's stutter didn't go away. He didn't want it to. It had taught him timing, taught him to think before speaking, taught him that silence wasn't weakness, it was a tool. And when people laughed, he remembered what mattered most. They weren't laughing when the truth arrived, and when the next case came, because there would always be a next, Malik would be ready, not louder, just sharper. More Latin, more law, more light. Justice, after all, isn't an event. It's a discipline.